Hello everybody. If there's anybody here, I'm sorry, I am late. I have a desk full of tarot cards and angel cards here. I spent the whole day trying to catch up on a backlog. Is this working? I hope everybody saw the article in Woman's Way. If you're in Ireland, I did post it on my page. I think you can actually read it from there, which is quite good. So since that was published, I have just been inundated. The phone has not stopped ringing. Facebook, messages, emails. I still have, let me move my 219 emails that I haven't read since I took a few days off. So I'm slowly but surely getting there, and I am catching up on the readings. Now, people who are waiting on readings, I think I'm not that far behind. I think I'm kind of caught up to last Thursday or Friday. But yes, readings, you know, when you order them online, they do take, you know, 3-4 days anyway. So, you know, don't panic. I do get your readings. So trying to answer emails and messages and WhatsApp and text messages, Facebook messages, Twitter messages, everything, as well as catch up on the readings isn't always possible, because I'm a one-woman show, I'm afraid. Look at my hair. I washed it earlier and it's just mad. Anyway, so I wanted to talk. I'm always pulling out books because I'm using my iPhone and I prop it up on books so that I'm not looking down at it. And then I see interesting books that I've read in the past and I pull them out again. So for people, you know, I have recommended different books in the past. Stephen Turov, anything written by D. Scott Rogo or George Anderson. This book, I hope it comes across, there, I'm viewing it back to front here. It's called Alison Dubois, Don't Kiss Them Goodbye. Alison Dubois, actually, I've never watched it, but there's a program on telly called Medium. And I think that's the correct title for it. I think it's about a female medium who helps solve cases in the United States. And this is who the series is based on, Alison Dubois. And this is her book and her story and some stories about things that she has experienced. So that's really interesting. The other one, which is extremely interesting in my opinion, but I do like a bit of history. Do you see Hinesville? If anybody's ever heard of Hinesville, it was a place, I'm assuming it's still there, I don't know, in New York State somewhere. And these were the Fox sisters. So they kind of started modern spiritualism. They heard knocking in their home and they were able to communicate with the spirit. But I bought this little book in London a couple of years ago, and I've read it several times. It's actually really interesting, at the risk of spoiling the book. As it turned out, the house where they lived, which isn't there anymore, I believe it was moved to Lilydale, but since burnt down. But when they moved the house, after all this happened, what happened was they started hearing bangings and tappings on walls and beds, and then they started connecting with a spirit that was there of a man. And when they moved the house some years later, people started to come from miles and miles around just to hear them communicate with the spirit and the tappings and stuff. And when they moved the house some years later, they found underneath the house in kind of a dugout basement. It wasn't like literally, you know, years ago now. And this was, God, 1800 and something. So it was just like effectively dug out underneath the ground. That someone had been killed and buried there. It was one of those travelling salesmen. And of course, as he went around, he had lots of money. So a previous occupant of the home had killed him and buried him in the basement for his money. And it was his spirit that they were connecting with. Now, years later, it said that they were, you know, supposed to be faking. That I don't know, but I know that they really started the interest again and brought it to the public front. And they're the Fox sisters, and that's the story of Hinesville. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, the book was only £4 sterling. I bought it in Stansted College in London, which is the Stansted Hall, it's called, or the Arthur Findlay College, which is a great place to go to further your mediumship. Okay. Okay, somebody's telling me to please read my messages. I have caught up on all my messages, I thought, today. So unless you've emailed me in the last couple of, or messaged me in the last couple of hours, Elaine, yeah, I should have answered all messages. Okay, so, what happens when we die? Okay, so again, I'm unscripted. I'm actually just looking at my computer, and I've been doing readings and stuff, so I shouldn't, because that's actually very, it takes my attention away. Okay, so what happens when we die? Okay, so the first thing I want to say to people about when we die is, when you come to me, anyone who's had a reading from me will know, I say, I feel this, I feel that, whatever. Okay, actually the light of the computer was great. After taking all the light off my face. When you come to me, I say, like, I feel a tightness on my chest, or I feel a pain here, or whatever. And I do use the word pain, but it's not necessarily a pain, okay? I feel a heaviness somewhere, like, and very few people are the same. It's always quite different. So take, for example, if someone had a heart attack, okay? For some people, it is like just, like there's something going straight from the front to the back. Some people, it's just a tightness across the chest. It's very different. Despite the amount of times I've felt it, I'm still not going to know if I'm having a heart attack someday. But, to God, touch wood, I hope I don't have one. So I'm always saying that I do feel a pain, but it's not necessarily a pain, and I don't want you to think that your loved ones were in pain, because actually very rarely there is pain. Sometimes when you cut yourself or whatever, you don't actually feel pain until you see it. And that's kind of what it's like. So I always imagine that, we're kind of taken away from that pain just before death. Okay, so now I'm speaking from my experience, okay? I'm speaking from the messages that I've got from people over the years, some readings that I've done or what I've been told from other people, but mostly, what I've experienced, okay? So first of all, the main thing is that you will always be met by somebody. Okay, that could be anybody. It could be, a partner that's predeceased you. It could be a parent. It could be a son or a daughter, and it's not always going to be who you expect either. Okay, so sometimes, somebody may have a husband that's passed before them, but it may be your dad that comes to meet you. So, it's not necessarily going to be a particular person. It's who you need at a particular time. And sometimes it may be more than one person. For anybody who's been through that, where they've kind of sat with somebody and watched them die, okay, and unfortunately I did with my granddad when I was 14 years old, because he came to live with us. And I spent all that day sitting with him, because we knew he was going. And for anybody who's watching, perhaps you'll think of sending a prayer at the moment to my grandaunt Mary in London, who is very ill and has been ill for some months, but she was anointed over the weekend, and our family are sitting with her in London constantly. So you might keep her in your prayers. So, so you'll always be met by somebody. And for those who have had to sit with somebody, bless them, when they're passing over, you will notice that, well, not always, but the majority of cases, people will mention having seen somebody in their room. My Aunt Mary passed away 6 years ago, last March. And I went to see her in the hospital before she passed, because she was living in London, and I couldn't stay over there indefinitely, but I did go to see her because we knew her time was coming. And for about 3 weeks before she died, she kept seeing this little girl sitting in the chair in the corner of her hospital room. And she said that little girl was constantly with her. So whether that was an angel, whether it was someone, that had passed over to spirit, we weren't aware of any young women or even young children, young females, or even infant females that had passed over. But nonetheless, this was a child that was waiting for her, and gave her great comfort in those last weeks of her life. But there's always someone that they will see. And from what I've seen so many times, whether it's the fact that someone's in a hospital bed or in a bed at home with their family surrounding them, or there may have been an accident, or whatever the situation is, it's always come to me that they have been looking around from wherever they are, whether it's lying on the side of a road or in a bed, and they see somebody coming towards them, okay? Not always from this great beam of light, just like this person is in the room with them. And you know, several times I've been shown it like someone's kind of come in through the crowd. So if there's people around after an accident, or, you know, paramedics or whatever, or, you know, just family, or sometimes people are on their own when they pass, and they just, you know, kind of look up and not realize what's happened, and then see this person who they know has been in spirit, and then this kind of brings it home to them. Okay, so they will always be met, they'll never be left on their own, and it's quite common for somebody not to realize that they're dead, okay, just for those few seconds really. You know, that whether whatever's happened to them, whether they've died by suicide, or they've been hit by a truck, or, you know, they just have passed over. For a minute or two they're wondering, you know, did I just get up? What's happened? God, I had a near miss there. But in fact they have actually passed over. And so all of this, you know, those little love hearts on the screen are very distracting, aren't they? I'm looking there. They seem to have changed them, and that little pictures appear in them. And maybe it's just me seeing that, who has actually done the love heart. But thank you for the love hearts anyway. So, yes, so they will always see somebody, and they will always be greeted by somebody. I think I'd already said that. Okay, so moving on, they don't always realise that they've passed. Now, I have heard this, not from everybody, but in certain cases, they talk about being attached to the body and finding it hard to move away from the physical body. And it is said in certain cases, I don't get this in all cases, I've only had this a handful of times where they talk about it. And for anybody, I've recommended this book over and over again, 7 Steps to Eternity by Stephen Chorov. I think I recommend it in nearly every video. But it is spoken about in that book, whereby the spirit is actually attached to the body by almost like an umbilical cord, like what you have when you're born, and that has to be broken, that you have to break away from that. But from my experiences, it's not like a physical breaking, like you have to bring a scissors with you to cut this. It's more like an acceptance of, oh, you know, I'm leaving my body. And this kind of almost breaks the connection, but you have to accept it before you can move forward. Okay, so you will be taken by family member, spirit guide, whatever, to what a lot of people call a hall of healing. Okay, I call it a welcome center because a lot of places have a welcome center. If you visit any landmark site or, you know, tourist attraction, they've got a welcome center. So I view it as a welcome center, and there you will be met by your family members, your spirit guides, you know, a team, what I call your team, that are going to help you. Okay, so after an initial period of settling in there, you know, getting to know everybody, coming to terms, you know, with the fact that yes, this has happened, you've moved on from the physical life, then this is where it happens that you view, you know, this thing of your whole life flashing before your eyes. Well, this is where it happens. It's where you sit down and you go through the main events of your life, the main things that have happened, and you say, oh, you know, I did really well there, or I could have done better, or I wish I'd done that differently, or I should have been kinder to this person, or I shouldn't have murdered that person. It depends who you are, I guess. And you have to go through all of this and see where you've gone wrong and what you should have done better. It's kind of like, what would I call it? You know, your way of kind of developing spiritually, because we're here to develop. We're here to move on spiritually. So you have to do that. You have to accept that there are things that you've done wrong and things that you could have done better. And, you know, get past this life and then move on. Okay. So, and this is where people differ. I believe in reincarnation. I absolutely, totally, 110% do. Some people don't. Okay. And absolutely their prerogative. I do believe in reincarnation. And from what I have gained from spirit over the years is that you get the choice at this point. So you've been through everything in your life, the things you could have or should have done better, and you get the choice to move on. Okay, so you need to make up for these things, you need to atone for these things. Okay, so do you do that in the spirit world? Do you choose to stay in the spirit world and help, or do you choose to come back to earth and make up for what you've done? Okay, so this is where you make the choice. Now, you're not going to make the choice, I'm going to go back to earth and I'm going to do it now. Okay, you don't just go over and then come back. It will take time, okay? You still have to, you know, get over everything you've been through, heal your spirit, develop your spirit some more, and find out, you know, why you did these things wrong. And, you know, sometimes it may be your 500th visit to Earth, and you may be at your last one, okay? A lot of us get that deja vu feeling, you know, that we've been here before. We've all heard the term somebody's an old soul, okay? So all of these things, I mean, there's lots of factors and variables, combinations, permutations that we can go through in all these lifetimes that we have, okay? But yes, you will get the choice. Do you want to come back and make up for these things, or do you want to stay in the spirit world? So what I mean by that is, okay, so say, for example, I die of cancer, okay? And I haven't been, you know, I've got things that I need to make up for, you know, I don't know. Okay, so say for example, I don't talk to my dad, okay? My dad left when I was 6 years old, and we haven't had a relationship since. And so say, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should forgive him and look for him to come back into my life and whatever. Okay, people have different opinions on this. I choose to live one way, but maybe that's wrong. And maybe when I go over, I'll be told, well, I should have forgiven him. He had his issues. Whereas I will say that I was the child. But anyway, so maybe I'm wrong. And I'm told that I need to make up for this. Okay, so what's my choices? You know, I come back to Earth, and I'm either, you know, again, a daughter who's abandoned by a father as a child, or I'm a parent who abandons a child, you know, and who's never forgiven. So I get that choice. Okay, so I can come back to Earth and take on one of these roles, or I can stay in spirit and I can help maybe other people that have died by cancer to accept what's happened to them, to help them to move on. You know, I mean, this will take years of training. So effectively, I would be becoming someone's spirit guide. And or I could help other people, say, who have suffered with abandonment issues in life, that they still need to deal with this when they move over to the spirit world. And maybe I would become some kind of spiritual counselor again, and it would come under the umbrella of spirit guide and someone's spirit team. So I could do that. Also, in my life, I have lost a lot of children. I've spoken about this before. So perhaps one thing I could do when I go over to the spirit world is help children who have passed over without their parents, and that they don't have someone immediately to meet them and greet them and look after them. So perhaps I could do that and, you know, help them there. So we'll get the choice. We can do work in the spirit world, or we can come back here and live it again and see, can we do it better the second time? Okay. So a lot of choices. You're not going to have to do this within an hour of passing. Okay. Believe me. You will have to spend some time in the Hall of Healing, or as I call it, the Welcome Center, and, you know, go through your, you know, the life that you lived when you were here, but also to heal your spirit, to meditate. They do talk about meditation. So it's not necessarily just the home. I'm always talking about the different kinds of meditations, but yes, you will spend some time meditating, developing your spirit. It's all about progressing and moving upwards and onwards. Okay. So, you know, in my experience, people always come to me and say, well, you know, if there's reincarnation, how are you connecting with my loved one? And I'm saying, well, you know, it's not an overnight process. Time passes very quickly in spirit. So I'm always saying to people when they come for readings that a month in spirit time, I beg your pardon, a month in earth time is like a day in spirit time. So if someone's passed to us 12 months, to them it's like 12 days. Okay, so somebody could be in spirit years and years and years in our time, but just a couple of months to them. Okay, so you know, all these things take time, and you know, realistically, by the time you're ready to be reincarnated, which could take 100 or 200 earth years, there are stories out there of ones coming back sooner, but in my experience, it takes a lot longer. Okay, I'm not saying it can't happen. There's exceptions to every rule, and there's no hard and fast rules when it comes to spirituality. There seems to be some greater good up there that makes these decisions for us. But in my experience, it's longer. Okay, it can be 50, 70, 100, 500 years before somebody comes back. And, you know, this gives, so by the time you're ready to be reincarnated, anybody that's going to care about talking to you is already dead. So like this, I don't really have people, a couple of times people looking for information on family trees, absolutely. So they'll come back and they're looking to maybe find out something about someone that lived, you know, maybe 200, 300 years ago. I may or may not be able to help, and sometimes I have, sometimes I haven't. But yeah, you know, by the time I'm ready, by the time, if I die tomorrow, you'll all be dead and buried a long time before I'm ready to come back as reincarnated, okay? So you're not going to not get your spirit through, okay? If they're not coming through, it's for a completely different reason. Okay, so, you know, when you die, and I'm always saying this to people, you're so well looked after in the spirit world. It's here where we need the support. Your loved ones are well buffered, you know. Now, they come back, okay? So they will only spend some time up there in the Hall of Healing. They'll come back. And I remember having this conversation with my Aunt Mary that I spoke about earlier. And she said, what will I do? And I said, whatever you do, go with whoever comes from you, because you're going to need that time. And, you know, my mother, her sister was with her when she passed, and she said, I just felt she left immediately, that she didn't hang around. So she did, she went, but she did come back within, you know, about 2 days, 2-3 days. Now in the UK, funerals take a lot longer than they do here in Ireland. If you die in Ireland before midnight tonight, generally you'll go to the church tomorrow and you'll be buried the day after. So in the UK, it can take 2 or 3 weeks to organise that funeral. I don't know about the rest of the world. But, you know, it all happens very, very quickly. But time and time again, people come down and say something about their funeral, that so-and-so wrote a poem, or so-and-so put this in the coffin with them. And I'm just laughing at thinking of a reading that I did. If you have a good joint, there's not much point in putting it in the coffin with somebody because they can't smoke it. And one spirit came back and talked about how frustrating it was that this joint was in his coffin and he couldn't smoke it. But yeah. Just funny things that they mentioned, funny things that people have put into coffins with them, you know, or dead serious things, excuse the expression. But, you know, I mean, I live in Ireland, so there's a lot of Catholic people here, and, you know, they frequently speak about, you know, you put the wrong rosary beads with me. They have one that they use every day, and they may have one that's, you know, for good occasions. And, you know, pictures maybe that children or grandchildren have drawn and put into the coffin. And, you know, they'll talk about different things about the service, things about what was brought up at the offertory, or, you know, various different kinds of funerals, but they'll always come, well, generally they will mention something about it. So, you know, they will be there, they will visit, and they will be around, to, you know, as much as they can help their family through that period of mourning. But unfortunately, at that time, by the time they're being buried, they have very little energy built up, you know, so that, you know, it's harder for them to make themselves known. But know that time and time again, they come through and tell me something about their funeral. So they're there, they're around, okay, pretty much from day one. I don't know what else I can tell you about when they pass over. I mean, there's so many things that I've kind of spoke about at different times about your voice and your mind being the connection to them, that they know when you think about them, they know when you need them, that they come down to you. So I'm not really sure how much else. Is it just the initial period of passing over that they are always met by a loved one? Is that kind of what people were looking for? So I'm going to go through some of the comments now and see what other points are brought up. But one thing that, you know, was flagged in that book that I keep talking about, 7 Steps to Eternity, was that when he woke up in the spirit world, you know, that it was an environment that he would recognize. Unfortunately for that poor young fella, he was killed in the Battle of the Somme. So when he woke up, he was in a billet, you know, with other soldiers, because a lot of them had died together. But when his mother passed some years later, she woke up in a hospital environment. She died in a hospital, so she expected to wake up in a hospital so that the spirit doesn't go into shock. So all of these things that we experience here, don't forget the difference between the earth life and the spirit world is this physical body. That's the only difference. You're going to feel all the same things, have the same emotions, the same sense of humor. You know, all those things, they're part of your soul. They're not part of this body. You know, so nobody wants their body to go into shock. And, you know, all those things, they come to the fore a lot because I'm in Ireland, because suicide is a huge, huge problem in Ireland. And I do unfortunately read so many people that die by suicide. So for anybody out there that may have considered it or may be considering it, please know that just the physical death does not take away the worries, the problems, everything that you have in your head. Unfortunately, it doesn't. These are things that spirits still have to deal with, and that's hence the Hall of Healing. That's where that title comes from. So they will have to do that there, okay? So you're still going to take all those problems, all those worries and everything with you. You know, it's just the physical pain that you will leave behind. So there's a lot there, there's a lot into it, a lot of different avenues that we could spend like all year going down. And I know that people don't want to stay online all night. So I'm going to have a flick through some of these messages that have come through. Hello, Sarah, Margaret, Jim, Teresa. Okay, so loads of hellos. I know people are looking for guidance. I'm not really intended on doing personal, especially personal psychic readings on here. Hi, Nicola, Hilary, Breda. Okay, so let's see, is there any questions? Hi, Glencora. I'm actually good today, thank you. How are you? I'm a bit frazzled because, as I say, I've spent all day playing catch up, and I will be here for some hours yet during the night trying to catch up. Okay. Just see Ellie Lamb there. You'd love to hear from your brother. Was your brother's passing very sudden, Ellie? There seems to have been something quick here or unexpected about his passing, and like the breath has been knocked out of him. But he laughs and says that nothing keeps him off his feet for a long time. So is that your brother that's coming through? Because I know I'm kind of scrolling here through a lot of people, but somebody here is laughing and telling me that he wants people to know that nothing keeps him down for any length of time at all. And even though the wind was knocked out of his sails, he recovered pretty quickly. Okay, so I don't know, does that make sense to you with your brother? Okay, so any questions with regards? Hi, Jackie. Just before your granddad died, he kept asking, did we see the little girl at the end of the bed? Exactly the same with my aunt, who saw the girl sitting on the chair in the corner. I'm looking at the corner as if she's going to appear. Anyway, it wasn't until years later when you did the family history, found out he had a sister who died at 10 years old. Lovely to know someone came to help him cross over to spirit. Like, that's amazing. And to get that validation from somebody. You know, I read a book when I was in the college in London, was it last year or the year before? And it was about people who describe what they see. So I posted something on my Facebook page there a couple of months ago about Steve Jobs and what he described that he was going, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow, just before he passed. He was trying to, you know, tell people that he could see something. And I read a whole book of those experiences going right back to the 17th century. It was actually quite an old book. It was an antique book. If anybody there has been to Stansted Hall in London, like the whole place is like stepping back in time. But he took this book to my room with me one night, and I read it. I stood up half the night reading it. It was so interesting just to see the things that people described, what they were seeing. But I have spoken about this on here before. I keep talking about my granddad. I'm trying, and I'm sorry if I bore people talking about my granddad or Kevin or those, Mary, those close to me that have died, because these are my experiences and part of my earthly experiences on top of my spiritual experiences. But my granddad, he came to live with us when he had cancer. There was just my mother, my sister and I. And I sat with him all that day. From 7 o'clock in the morning until about, I would say 11:30 that night, okay, because my mother had to work. She was supporting the three of us. And, you know, he hung on and he hung on and he hung on. And this is something that comes, and I've actually had it a few times recently, you know, I was with them all day, or I was with them for 3 solid days, and the moment I went home to have a shower, they died, okay? And, you know, I've experienced this as well with my granddad, because as soon as I went up to bed, he passed. So my mother was home then, and she was with him, and Kevin was there, and they didn't call me because I literally went upstairs and flaked out. And I was only 14, so I guess they didn't want me to be there. But he had been kind of in a coma state, and for anybody who's been through it, they know it's not exactly a coma per se, but the body is effectively dying and has no energy, but the person's still in there, and they know what's going on around them. So be very careful around people in that state. They can hear what you're saying. So you know, I read to him. That's what I did all day. I read the newspaper, I read books, I talked about what was on the television. I'd watched the Super Bowl and I told him all about it. Not that I know much about American football, but I had watched the Super Bowl. And, you know, all these kind of things. So I just talked to him all day, and I know that he knew I was only 14. We were very close. So he didn't want to die while I was there. So he waited until I was gone. And he was still kind of, you know, not communicating with anybody. And as his breathing got shallower and shallower and lower and his pulse was dropping, he sat bolt upright in the bed. And he said, "Wait, Daddy, I'm coming with you." And with that, his body collapsed to the bed and there was no life left in him, okay? So his father, he was the oldest boy. He wasn't the first to die, though. He had a brother that died at 13. But he was the oldest boy, and his father came for him. And him and his dad were so close. So, like, in that moment, we know that he wasn't on his own. And funny enough, I'd gone upstairs and thrown myself on the bed, ready to go to sleep. But then I woke up about maybe 5-10 minutes later, and I went over to the window, and for some reason it was really bright night, full moon or whatever, and I saw my granddad and my grandmother leave the house. I saw my grandmother meet him at the gate, so he just went out the door and he met her and they left together. But he was back within a day or so. But he just needed that time to, you know, come to terms with his passing over, meeting his dad, meeting my grandmother who had passed 7 years before him. You know, so all these things he needed time for. But yes, like Jackie's telling us, he could see his sister, and, you know, he knew that there was family waiting there for him. So from anybody that I've read for, they've never found it hard to let go, you know, because it's almost like an excitement. You know, when you, if anybody's ever come home and you have a surprise visitor, you know, and you're excited and you rush in the door to give them a big hug. And that's what it's like. So you've just died and you see somebody that you haven't seen in a long time, a parent, brother, sister, whatever. So you run to them and you give them this big hug. And then all of a sudden you realise, I shouldn't be seeing these people because they died. And then you realise that you're also there too. So, you know, there's not that, not much of that hesitation to go once you see your loved ones waiting for you. So thanks for that, Jackie. Hi, Maggie, my friend in New York. How are you? Hi, Sharina, your daughter was in a coma for a month. You think she was visiting the other side before she passed? Absolutely. And, you know, I did have someone, I don't want to give away too much detail on this one because it was a high profile thing, but basically somebody was like that in a coma. And another family member had passed not long before. And this person was going between the spirit world and the earth world, visiting the loved ones on the other side and then coming back here. So yes, there was a lot of that going on, and it's very common. Okay, so yes, yes, that can happen, absolutely. And they're deciding, you know, will I stay or will I go now? Not always their decision, because, you know, sometimes our body just gives up on us, and sometimes, you know, emotionally people don't want to come back. So it just depends on the person. Hi, Jackie, how can you tell if it's your last one? My last what? Are you talking about, is it your last time on this earth, your last life? Well, you know, that will be told to you by your spirit team, okay, when you pass over. And I guess unless you've done absolutely nothing wrong, then you'll be coming back, or you'll be working for many years over there. Hi, everybody. Hi, Chelsea. You feel like you go through this experience with your Nana as she was passing? Absolutely. You know, everyone that passes goes through a similar experience, you know, whether they see it just as somebody coming. Some people describe it as a tunnel. I've never had anybody describe it as a tunnel to me, to be quite honest with you. I have had somebody, a couple of people describe it as seeing one person coming forward to meet them, but they're aware that there's other people in the background. So it's like someone comes across that bridge, if you like, to meet you and bring you back, and then you're enfolded into the family again, and it's amazing. Hi, Magella. Hi, Carmel. Your son is... You know, that's funny that you asked that, Carmel, and thanks for the question. She's asking, is her son happy, you know, in the afterlife? Happy is a word that's used very seldom in readings. And it's just a selfless thing. Spirit never want us to think that they're happier without us than they ever were with us. So they never come to and say, gee, I'm delighted. Good luck now. I'll see you when you die. I'm delighted to be here. Because that would be hurtful for us, you know. So, yeah, it's a word they seldom use. But nobody is unhappy or left bereft over there, okay? But please allow people you know, to grieve us. Don't forget that we've lost them, but they've lost their life and they've also lost us as well. So they have a lot to deal with as well. So, you know, give them time to grieve as well. Okay. Hi, Anka. Anka's laughing at me. I don't know why you're laughing at me, Anka. What did I say? Hi, Karen. When your brother passed, you were there. He looked so less stressed. Feel he was under so much pressure. God love him. Miss him so much. Okay, so, you know, some people say that, you know, I don't know, is it an Irish thing? You know, I know there's people tuning in from abroad, but, you know, we kind of say in Ireland, oh, they looked very peaceful, you know, oh, they look great, because we have this viewing, you know, in the Catholic Church, if it's appropriate, you know, depending on the death, but mostly the coffins would be open and you would get to see the person before the coffin's closed and they're buried, obviously. And we go, oh, you know, they looked very peaceful. Or sometimes people say, oh, they didn't look themselves now. They looked a bit out of sorts, you know. And we kind of take this death mask or this death face as being their sentiment. Okay, don't. Because, you know, undertakers do all kinds of things to bodies to, you know, to make them look in a certain way. They glue lips together. They either put teeth in or they don't put teeth in, or, you know, you may have had an autopsy which changes your appearance. So, you know, I wouldn't necessarily take how that face is to say how somebody is dealing with their death, okay? But it is nice that you saw it and you felt that he was less stressed. I would take the feeling from him, you know, and he will come back to let you know. But it sounds like there's more to his passing then. I'm going to go into now. Okay, Sarah. So strange that I said that. What did I say that was strange? Hi, Lisa. Hi, Andrea's in Waterford. Yeah, I was actually looking at arranging something for Waterford today. So I'm going to be coming back soon. Love to know, okay, looking for a sibling to come through and granddad. I might not. So if I'm looking for my sibling to come through and my granddad, I might not know if they are okay and happy because they might not be around right now. Mainly, I'd love to know how my brother is, just want to know he's safe. Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, okay? There's been a couple of occasions where people have come and I just don't connect with them, okay, for whatever reason. There are things, and I've done a video about this before, about what to think about. So if you go back to my timeline, or you know, the way you can click on photos, I think you can click on videos and see the past videos that I've done, you know, what to consider when you're coming for a reading. You know, are you stressed? Is there something going on in the family? Is there someone extremely sick or dying? You know, because I have people come for readings and they've been looking for messages from family members, but someone's maybe dying at that time. And if you've got a family member that's ready to pass over and you're trying to communicate with another one, so, you know, be realistic. If you were in spirit and a family member was dying, you'd be by their side. You'd be one of that family group waiting for them. So, especially when they're going to pass at any moment, you know, they're not going to leave that person's side. So, you know, and I have had it happen before that they would have to come back, you know, after the person has passed to get the message from the loved one because they wanted to be there to meet them, you know. So, you know, bear in mind what's going on in the family, what's going on for you. If you're too stressed, if someone's emotionally stressed, if they're depressed, you know, if something huge is going on in their life, well then, you know, you may not, now sometimes people do, but you may not get a reading from spirit. I suppose you're less likely because of the fact that you're stressed, because a reading can be very emotional and it can bring up lots of things, you know, from the past. You know, you may relive the grief shortly, you know, after the reading again. So, you know, if you've already got a lot going on, then it's not the right time to get a message from spirit, and they may not come through. I won't say they won't, but they may not come through because they don't want to put that extra pressure on you. Okay, so just be aware of what's going on in your life. When a person is in a coma, do they hear us? Hey Liz, well, the one I was talking about with my granddad, it was called a coma, but it's not the medical coma. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I don't have any medical experience. So if any of you are doctors and nurses, take what I say with a pinch of salt. But my granddad had cancer, okay? So those last couple of days, he was said to be in a coma, okay? But it wasn't a medical coma in that his brain hadn't stopped working. Well, that would be life support, but how will I describe it? There's a coma, which is medical, you know, maybe after a big accident or trauma or something, or an operation or whatever, where the body is shut down in order to give it time to heal, okay? But in the case of my granddad, he was dying of cancer, and one by one his organs were shutting down. So his body gave up on him, but his spirit was still there. His mind was working perfectly. He wasn't on any machines or monitors or anything. He was at home with us. So even though it was called a coma, it wasn't a medical coma in that regard. It was just his body had almost died before his brain, if that makes sense. Because it was slowly dying, but he was still there, and he could still hear everything that was going on around him. He just didn't have, his body didn't have the energy to talk to us. So but then there is another kind of coma, obviously, which is after, you know, some kind of trauma or something medical. That said, that there are different kinds. They've always told me that they know what's going on around them, okay? And yes, I have had a few people that have either been on life support or been in a coma, or just had that exhaustion before they passed with cancer. And every one of them tell me that they've heard everything that goes on around them, okay? So no fighting, no bickering. I had one person giving out that they were planning the funeral over her body before she was actually gone. So all these kinds of things. Just be careful and be thoughtful with what you're saying when someone's in that kind of position, okay? Okay, hi Sarah, you feel him everywhere with me, not all the time, a lot of the time. Okay, Sarah, yeah, and you know, we always have this thing that all our loved ones are with us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year without fail. They're not, okay? How are they going to help others if they're with you all the time? And I keep coming back to this walkie-talkie thing. So if you imagine the two of you like walkie-talkies, so he's your brother. You love him. He loves you still. So you're on the same wavelength. If you think of it as a radio wavelength. So you're here and you think about him, or you talk about him with another family member, and he's over there at the other side, and he picks up those vibrations from you. So you're thinking, oh, I need you. Oh, I want you. Oh, I wish you were here. And in that instant, whoosh, there he is with you, okay? It's when he knows you need him, or when he knows there's something coming up. Because time and time again here, people are coming for readings and they're saying to their ones, I have a reading book now, I have an hour with this girl and you better come through. And then they're coming into the reading that I have before them to say, I'm here now because she told me I had to be early. You know, so I get all these things and then it starts to interfere with the reading before. It's fine, you know. I'm not saying don't. Please do tell your relatives that you're coming for a reading. But I'm just telling you that they hear you, that, you know, they know you're coming for the reading, so they're going to be here. So it's when they know you need them. Okay, and sometimes when they need you too. Okay, can you, the pop, tell me that I'm a granddad? I don't know what you mean, Abby. Okay. Karen Ralph, your brother was knocked to the ground. Was it your brother? I can't remember who I was talking about there. That the brother was it your brother, Karen, that I was picking up the suddenness of his passing and that he couldn't be kept down for long? Was that you? I can't remember. You lost your mum on Valentine's Day. I'm so sorry, Sue. You feel her around you. Why wouldn't she be? Is it a true feeling or a wish? You need guidance, please. It's the same thing. Just what I was talking about there, about the walkie-talkie thing and sending out the signal that you need them. Absolutely. You know, why not? That you're hoping that she's here, and of course she comes to join you. You lost her on Valentine's Day. What are we? February, March, April, May, June, July. So she's gone 5 months, but to her that's just like 5 days. Okay. So sometimes it's just this overwhelming feeling of love. Sometimes we actually feel a hand on a face or a shoulder or a back. Sometimes we smell them, you know, a perfume or a soap or something. There's various ways in which you can sense your mom around you. But if you're feeling love from mom, then mom's definitely there. Don't push it away. This is what I'm talking about with people reading the signs. Don't doubt yourself, okay? If you feel your mother's there, then absolutely 125% she's there, okay? Okay, Ashley also lost a brother. Why wouldn't he be around you? It's the very same thing, you know. Talk to him. As soon as he can let you know that he's there, he will, okay? So let's see. Apart from the individual reads, anything else? Is it normal to worry about someone who has passed, even though you'd like to think they're in a safe place? We all worry about them. You know, I put up a thing on my page last week that Kevin died. And, you know, it's no secret, Kevin died 27 years ago. I was 15 years old. And I miss him. And I can't talk about him without crying. And I'm going to cry. I miss him every single day. You know, he walked out the door, a perfectly healthy 31-year-old man, and he came home in a coffin. And I miss him every day, and I worry about him because it took him a long time to come through and connect, because he was angry and he was hurt after the accident. He had horrific injuries. And I love him and I worry about him. You know, my Aunt Mary, I worry, you know, was she okay? Okay, she left straight away. I hope she met the people that she wanted. I know she did. In my heart, I know she did and she's okay. I do this every day and I reassure people every day, but I'm still normal. I'm still human. I still have all these feelings and worries about people as well. So absolutely, you know, you're going to worry about them. Did they feel pain? Do they still feel pain? Do they miss us every day? Do they miss me as much as I miss them? You know, are they worried? Are they lonely? Are they scared? Do they want to come back? You're going to think of a million things, you know, and allow yourself, because that's part of grief. Whether it was yesterday or 50 years ago that you lost your loved one, it's part of grief. Hi Sharina, if you were meant to die at a certain point in your life and decided to stay and you knew it, will you continue to get sicker until you have to leave? You're pretty sure your daughter stayed for me until she couldn't anymore. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we talk about, I think I spoke about it the last day about these exit points, that we've all had these near misses. God, you know, wasn't that a close one? I nearly crashed there. I was going a bit fast around that bend, or you know, oh God, she recovered from that cancer and she was at death's door. God, didn't she do well? You know, we all have these exit points. At some stage, we're going to have to exit. And I spoke at the beginning of my video tonight about my grandaunt Mary in London, who is on her deathbed, God bless her, and she was anointed at the weekend, but she's been hanging on and hanging on and hanging on, you know, and she really is fighting, going, even though she wants to be with her husband because she has been heartbroken since the day he died, and you know, but her family don't want her to go, and therefore she doesn't want to go because she doesn't want to leave them. She's been the matriarch for a long time. You know, people hold on. And one thing that is really common when people come back, especially with, you know, when they've had an illness, that they're waiting for a particular person to come. So maybe there's like a, you know, a son or a daughter that lives, you know, in Australia, and it's taken them a couple of days to get over here. You hear, I waited for you until you came, or I was waiting and waiting, but I couldn't hold on anymore. They try their best to say as many goodbyes as they can. Okay, so I'm sure your daughter wanted to stay with you and tried, and you know, tried to let you say everything that you needed to say to her, and that she said everything, you know, that she needed to say to you. It's absolutely not unusual. It is totally normal. Okay. Okay. Just tell me my grandpapa. I don't know what that means. Sandie, are clicking sounds, irregular clock ticking sounds, something from another dimension? I've read about it a lot. And hear it at night, but there's nothing else to explain it. Also really feel like an empath. Okay, so are clicking sounds, irregular clock ticking sounds, something from another dimension? Another dimension, do you mean from the spirit world or from an alien world? I mean, be realistic about it. Do you have a clock in the room? Okay, if you're hearing ticking, is there a clock in the room? If you're hearing banging, is there some logical explanation for it? I've said before that I find it hard to connect with my own loved ones, because when you're giving information to somebody about someone that you've never met, you don't know anything about them. So it's easier to read for a complete stranger than it is to read for someone that you know. And so for that reason, I find it hard to connect with my own loved ones in the spirit world. But I do connect with them by banging. And I have had some of the best conversations sitting in my conservatory with some of my loved ones and getting them, if you can hear this, knocking on the wall like that. So sometimes it's their way of getting our attention. Very common for people to say they've heard footsteps. Whenever I'm in my Aunt Mary's house, my aunt that passed away, not my grandaunt that's dying at the moment, you know, I hear her going up and down the stairs, because she must have gone up and down the stairs 30 times every single day, you know. So constantly hear her going up and down the stairs. You know, so there are some sounds, but be realistic if you're So we really had a good run before my internet started playing up this evening, didn't we? If you're hearing a clock, is there a clock in the room? You know, so be logical about what you're hearing and what you're experiencing, okay? And why aren't you, you know, you really feel like an empath? If you're an empath, then you're an empath. So many people are, they just, you know, ignore all those things that are going on around them. So why wouldn't you be, Emma? Hi, Glencora. You heard ages ago that a good friend, oh, I'm sorry. These long comments, they say, see more. You heard ages ago that a good female friend of mine that died was not happy on the other side, and she felt she wasn't ready. She was only 25 and left children behind. Can this happen? I would be very bitter if I left now when my children were small. Very bitter, you know. Absolutely. Is she not happy? She's not happy that she didn't get to see her children grow up. But it's not that she's unhappy in the spirit world, if that makes sense. There's a lack of happiness because her children, she didn't get to see them to that point where they were independent, but she's not unhappy in the spirit world. Does that make any sense? Okay, she's okay, she's well looked after, but I mean, how many of us here are parents, you know, and all we want is to get our children to a point where they are independent, educated, working with a roof over their head, hopefully a family of their own someday, but just to get them to a particular point. My computer keeps going off and then I feel like I'm very dark, so I keep flicking it back on again. You know, so I mean, you know, she's allowed to worry about her children, you know, she's allowed to you know, worry about their future, perhaps what's going on in their life now, but it doesn't mean, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that she would come back. Maybe she would for their sake, but it doesn't mean she's unhappy. She's just grieving for the loss of her children, okay? So you need to look at it logically, okay? We can't, you know, imagine that she's over there every day getting so much love and attention and help. But I mean, to say that she wouldn't miss her kids or be unhappy that she's not here, you know, that wouldn't make any sense. So of course, yes, it can happen. We always forget that they have to grieve for us. Ah, finally back. Okay, so I see the viewing has dropped. Probably thought it wasn't going to come back. But I'm going to finish up now in a second because I'm not going to get through all of these comments. And then mostly people, how do you know if a person had peace at the other side? You know your mother wouldn't have wanted to leave us. Of course she wouldn't have wanted to leave us, but everybody has to leave at some stage. And, you know, she would have, you know, been reunited with so many people. And don't forget that they have the best of both worlds because they can come and see us, okay? I know that it's not the same, but they can come down and see, are we doing okay? And also be with their loved ones. So they get the best of both worlds, okay? Of course she's going to be at peace. Okay. About the gent leaving his prized joint in the coffin. Yeah, I know, I laughed at that one too. But yeah, I've never seen a joint. I'm going to tell you a funny story now, just to lighten the mood. I thought it was a cigar or something. I never seen a joint. But when I was younger, I used to work in a hotel, and we were cleaning up after an event one morning. I was, 14, 15, 16, and I used to clean up rooms and stuff, and we were cleaning up after an event one morning, and the hotel manager came in, and he was looking around, and there was lots of obviously stuff thrown on the floor and whatever. Back in the day where you could smoke at inside hotels and stuff, and he picked something up off the floor, and he started going around. He said, "For F's sake, somebody was in here smoking joints last night. We need to cut this out, and people shouldn't be coming in here with joints and everything." And as it turned out, it was actually a chocolate cigarette. So I guess he didn't have any more experience with joints than I did. But if for those who don't remember chocolate cigarettes, they were literally just, and this was how a lot of people got addicted to smoking, I guess. They were just chocolate wrapped in white paper, and you could pretend you were smoking, but it was just chocolate, and he thought it was a joint. So yeah, I didn't know what a joint was. I said, "Did you put a cigar in the coffin with him?" I said, "Because he's frustrated because he can't smoke the cigar." It turned out it was a joint. Okay, Sandy said about breath going out of them fast, so sudden it was. I know he hadn't ever been to a morgue, was at home and died straight away. The poor fella. That's your brother, is it, Karen? I'm so sorry. Do babies stay babies when they pass? No, Liz, I actually did one about that, and I'm getting so many questions. I think I might do another babies and animals one and combine that. Okay. The joint that he couldn't smoke is what you found funny. Okay. Your brother died, never got to say goodbye. Can't get over not seeing him. Did he know? The fact that some people don't get to see the body, Sharon, it's more a closure thing for us than it is for them. They don't necessarily need to see their body to accept that they've moved on, but sometimes we need to see it to accept that they've moved on, no matter how hard it might be for us to see their body. Because I do remember seeing a loved one, and Kevin, and he'd had an autopsy which was crudely stitched, crudely cut, and upset me more than the fact that he died, that they'd done this to him. I was only a teenager, I know, but that's what I remember. So sometimes it can be hard to see the body, but it still gives us that closure, and that's what you're missing. So I get what you're going through. Did he know that you miss him? Absolutely. And he misses you just as much. But I know you're talking about facial injuries because the casket was closed, but yet I'm feeling a heaviness on my chest, like there was something bearing down on my chest with him. And basically knocking the wind out of him, but not allowing him to recapture that wind. So I don't know, but it feels high on the chest, like it's just here. This area here, so I don't know, does that make sense to you with how he passed? And is there 3 girls in your family, Sharon? I want to talk about 3 girls as well, left behind by him. He's telling me that he was just as frustrated as you at not being able to say goodbye. He said, you're here and you're frustrated because you didn't get to say goodbye, and he's there and he's frustrated because he didn't get to say goodbye. And he says, it's not about the physical body, it's just about the emotion of it. But I can get from your point of view the lack of closure, and that's what you're missing out from. Okay. Your daughter, I miss her so much, a granddaughter. Okay, so that's psychic, Connie, so I'm not going to go into your personal life on here. Debbie, when I come to Ontario again, Debbie, I was due to come back in October, and I might not. I don't know. I actually have so much going on at the moment, which is fantastic, but I miss Canada and I miss Liz. And I'm going to try and get over, but it may be later, maybe the end of November, because I am starting another business which is taking up all of my extra time at the moment. Not that I had any extra time to begin with, but even less so now. So I'm just going to wait and see how that pans out over the next couple of months before I make a final decision on it. But I would love to come back, Debbie. Sarah, your brother wasn't born, you feel so close to him strangely. That's not strange at all. And your granddad, you never met him, but the same with him. That is not strange at all to feel close. Okay, so let's see. pets. So Margaret, I had done that in the past, but I'm going to do another one again. Okay, so let's just whiz down here and see, did I get any answers from people? You never got closure from seeing him in the casket. Was that the one that I was reading up there as well? Sharon, yes, it was a hit and run, and you have 3 sisters. So there's the 3 females. Okay. And yeah, he never got to say goodbye either. So there was a frustration with him, Sharon. So really sorry about your brother, but he's just as frustrated. But yet, and you know, it sounds really, really ignorant that I'm smiling, but I feel like, whew, you know, anytime I'm talking to you, like I want to smile, like you would have been this high-spirited kind of guy, always joking, always messing, but not wanting to sit still either. I feel like I want to jig around the place. So say he wouldn't have been allowed for sitting still. He smoked as well though, didn't he? Because it's not necessarily that I can smell the smoke, it's more the feeling that I want to do something with my hands, like there was something that I would have done with my hands all the time. So a lot of times to me that means that he would have smoked. And it just seems like, you know, that he's missing that. But he feels very, I don't want to say jovial in that he's celebrating being over there, but like he's coming back to himself. But yeah, a lot of chest pain, okay, a lot of chest pain there, heaviness on the chest, right around it, okay, so it would have been a lot of chest injuries as well. Okay, God bless him. Okay, April, you never got closure from seeing somebody in the casket. See, that's what I'm saying. I didn't either, because that actually upset me more. To see what they'd done to his body in the autopsy. I would have preferred he just came home without an autopsy, because and I know they have to find an exact cause of death for the death cert, but Vinnie Power, need a few beers tonight. Vinnie, I don't drink and I need a few beers tonight. If someone didn't feel ready to go and they did, does it affect things? What kind of things? Does it take them longer to settle down and all that kind of stuff? Not necessarily, because when somebody passes, where there hasn't been an illness, they're taking their energy with them. Whereas you imagine somebody who has been fighting a cancer for maybe, you know, 6 months, 12 months, you know, 18 months, whatever, their energy is depleted before they ever pass over. So it can take them longer to acclimatize or to settle down over there to build back up this energy. Whereas someone who has passed suddenly, they've got that energy straight away, you know, and they're the people that I generally get within hours or days of passing. So it's easier to connect with them quicker. Okay, so let's see. Marion Brady, your dad died nearly 40 years ago in a crash. Is he okay? You miss him every day. Was there an awful lot of lower leg injuries with your dad? I don't know. It's just like, I almost feel like from the waist down, like I'm crushed. And I don't know if you know that, because I know it's many, many years ago. But yet he's telling me that this isn't the way he wants to be remembered. So it's not the crash that he wants to be remembered for. Okay. Even though I know that's how he passed, but that's not who he was. And a lot of people say that they don't want to be defined by the death that they had. Okay. Okay. So look, I've kept everybody on for long enough, and I know I'm never going to get through all these messages. Over the next couple of days, I'll try and reply to more and more. But I definitely won't get through them all. Look, thanks for tuning in. I hope it's answered some questions. I'm going to make a note now of the babies and the animals one, because kind of a lot of similarities there. I'm not saying babies are animals or animals are babies, but there's a lot of similarities into how you communicate, or how I suppose I can only speak for myself, how I communicate with both. Okay, so just see somebody there saying, has my dad stopped sending me signs? Why would he? If you're asking for signs, he's sending them, you're just stopping recognizing them, or you're expecting too much. Okay. Okay, so look, thanks everybody for joining in. I will arrange another one, and we'll do it. I can't guarantee that it won't be before next Monday, because, you know, again, I say that, you know, since the article in the magazine, things have just been mad here, but which is great. Thanks a million. So thanks everybody for joining in. Try and come back for the next one, and again, I will get through as many as I can. Unfortunately, a lot of it gets tied up with people looking for personal readings, and I know some of them I'll hit on and I'll feel them, but it's just impossible to answer everybody. So thanks for joining me, and thanks for all your questions. And you know, if you have anything that any questions, or should I say topics that you want discussed, like the babies one, which I'm going to write down now. Actually, let me just grab my notebook, because I just want to see, because I did write down a few at different times, and we've done some of those now. So do I have any suicide? So this is what happened. So suicide I have on my list, and now babies and pets again. Okay, babies and pets. So those two topics I have down. The rest we've gone through with different videos. So if you think of anything that in particular that you want, Anka, thank you for spending your time with me. No, thank you. I mean, I wouldn't be here chatting if you weren't all here. So I do appreciate that people come and listen to me, because I have a very flat Tipperary accent, and it's not always the easiest. When I start not pronouncing my THs, the harder I get, then you know she's really slipping back into her Tipperary accent, and she says de. Dis, dat, dees and does. And there's my Tipperary accent, okay? Listen, thanks everybody. Good night. I know it's 11:45, but I'll probably actually be here in the office for another 2 to 3 hours because I have loads to catch up on. But thanks very much, everybody. Take care, and we'll talk soon.